So everyone, welcome in. Great to have you here. And we're going to run through how to plan your documentation with Dataedo. So Piotr is our founder and CEO, and he's going to be leading us through and walking through how to really kick things off and plan better with Dataedo, use the tool more efficiently and effectively. I'm Chase Summers. I'm the director of customer operations here at Dataedo as well. So to kick things off for the agenda, we'll have a quick announcement to get things started. Then we'll go into a high-level implementation plan, so what you should really look at when implementing Dataedo from a high level. And then we'll get into the broader documenting and what that looks like. We will do a Q&A at the end. So first, the big announcement is we are releasing Dataedo 10.4 today. I know a lot of you have been waiting on this, and it's a pretty wide release. So to cover a few of the flagship features that are coming out, so we are introducing reference data management, or lookups as a lot of you may call them or know them as. We will also be introducing report catalog within the tool. We are adding in a new level of Power BI connector, so not just the metadata, but for reports, data sets, and lineage for Power BI. Azure Data Factory connector will be introduced, and then we will have automated column level lineage for views. So if you're working with views through SQL Server, you can automatically see that lineage through at the column level. And then we will be introducing foreign key relationship tester for SQL Server and Snowflake. So this will be a very quick and automated way for you guys to look at that. And then for a lot of our desktop and web users, we are introducing Open in Web button. So within the desktop, you'll have Open in Web, and it'll take you directly to your web catalog and show you exactly what you're looking at. And then lastly, save your favorite SQL queries. So those will be introduced to where you can go in and save those within the catalog.
All right, so let's have a look at the high-level plan, implementation plan. So you started, you bought Dataedo or any other tool, and you'd like to get started with documentation, and you don't know how to get started. So hopefully this will give you a good reference. So here's my idea of how we could get started with your documentation. So first thing you should consider is breaking down your project into smaller sub-projects, phases. I called it domains because you can take one data domain, which means just a subset of your data at a time, and then treat it as a separate project. It's good not to start, plan documenting everything at once, because this can be, challenging. This can be frustrating, and it's hard to actually, tell. If you're making real progress and providing value. So what I suggest is start with a high-level planning, identify those phases, and then start small, right? So each phase will then have its own planning session, then documentation phase. This is where the hardest part is. Then rollout to the users, and then use and maintain all the documentation. So let's talk about roles first. You can identify two types of key roles if it comes to data governance. There are data owners and data stewards. Data owners are the ones, people who are responsible for particular data set or any data artifact, or like a report, a table, or any type of processing. So they are responsible, and they have authority to make decisions. They are usually senior people in your organization, and they are quite busy, but they have the authority. And then there are data stewards. Those are data experts. Those are developers, BI developers, data architects, whoever is really working with data, knows everything about it. And data stewards do the actual work. So you can think of them as captains and those guys who actually clean the deck of the pirate ship. Okay, so planning of the project. So this is the initial planning stage. In first step, identify those data business domains. It can be, for instance, system-oriented or like functional-oriented, department-oriented, whatever works in your case. So, for instance, you can say, let's document our CRM first, or data warehouse, or anything that makes sense in your case. Then you should identify data sources, and that's databases, reporting, and any type of processing, ETL. Then you should identify data owners and stewards. Those are groups, because data owners or stewards, they apply to specific artifacts, specific objects. You can have one owner owning customers table and the other owning orders table, for instance, right? So you just identify who those people will be, like groups that you will be selecting from. Then you identify also the consumers, so who will be using the documentations, who will be the user, who the documentation will serve. So these are business users, data analysts, whoever is working with data, right? So it's good to know upfront who are doing this for. And the last point, you cannot see the full text here, but it's you choose the classifications. So you probably want to tag sensitive information. So it's, you should know upfront if you're going to use PII, GDPR, HIPAA, or anything else. You can add in the future, but it's good to know upfront which they are. Okay, let's move on to the planning of the phase. So you have created a list of sources and appointed stewards and owners, and also consumers. So in this phase, you review and refine it. Then there's the documentation part. There's another section when I'll go into detail about the documentation. There are multiple elements of documentation that you should plan separately and do separately. This can be done by same person or multiple people. More on that later. Then there's rollout. You review those consumer groups and create lists of those users. You have to set up the accounts and provide training. Good ways to invite those people for a demo. Ideally, you would record it and share it in your intranet. Then it's also good to promote it. So share it on your Teams or Slack. Send it with emails. Put it in your link it on your SharePoint or Confluence. Use any way so that people actually know that it's there. And the last phase is when you use and maintain. So ideally people actually using documentation on a daily basis. You should ask for feedback, get this feedback using our internal comments module or any other way like email or communicators. You should also review new objects and columns from schema change tracking. So see what new objects are created, what new tables, procedures and reports and so on, and then provide documentation for the new elements. And make sure you update documentation where needed. So whenever you notice something needs updating, make sure you do it. Make sure the documentation is alive. All right, so let's dive deeper into planning of the documentation. So identifying sources. Here's an example of how that might look. So data sources, ETLs, and BI tools reporting. I identified here which database I like to document and what's the platform, who are the experts. That's important because I'll be picking data stewards from that group. Who's the admin? I have to talk to that person to set up the connection and so on. So I propose a very simple spreadsheet like that to make an inventory of what I actually want to document. Then assigning responsibility, so owners and stewards. I listed those sources I mentioned before, and then I broke it down by those specific documentation assets that I'm going to create. So database, data dictionary documentation, BI reports, subject areas, data classification, lineage, and so on. I treat it separately. I assign owner and steward. Okay, so let's have a look at the documentation. First part is you need to set up connections. So you import all the sources you can. We support and you'd like to document. So databases, BI, ETL, and make sure you schedule the updates so that the catalog is up to date, right? So importing is it's the easy part, and scheduling requires some admin work. It's really good to make sure that those updates are going ideally daily, overnight, or at least weekly, so that the schema in the documentation is up to date. So then you can start with subject areas. Subject areas are those objects that break down your sources to smaller pieces, logical or functional. So what you do, you go through the list of tables and other objects in your data source, and then group them, assign subject areas. So in desktop, you just select a group of tables, then right click and create new subject area or assign to an existing one. The point is to break down the source into smaller elements, more logical, and then provide description for each, maybe an ER diagram as well. And the way to track progress here is just you see what subject areas are created for if they are if all the objects are assigned to on the list or assigned to at least one. Then a good approach would be to profile the data. You can run a bulk profiling and save it in the repository. To save in the repository, you need to enable it first, so make sure you enable saving. And then a safe way is to run distribution only, because it doesn't include, so that's the one on the left, doesn't include any potentially sensitive information. If you run it and save it, you'll have information on the breakdown on the data in every column in your database. And so you can run it and save it, just leave it like that. And then there's a full profiling, but that requires you reviewing, so you don't save any sensitive information. In the future, we'll be adding some automation on that, so we actually try to detect what's sensitive and not allow you to save it in the repository. So like, for instance, sample emails or names or things like that. But for now, you run it, and you should review and remove, cleanse the sensitive data before saving into the repository. Then there's the documentation of the data itself. So your tables, views, and that's I think the hardest part. Takes the most work, and that's also probably the most valuable part. So you go subject area by subject area, and then table by table, and you provide description of the table. So what's the purpose of the table? Maybe provide a title and alias for each. Then for each table, you also go column by column and describe it. What's the column for? Provide alias title. For each table, you review if there's a primary key or unique keys. Quite often there's the primary key, but there's some other business keys. So for instance, there's like customer ID and there's customer number. So you can, if you assume it's unique, the customer number is unique, you should create a unique key so that other know what are the constraints on the table. Ideally, tables should have at least one primary or unique key. Then you identify which columns are potentially foreign keys. With this new foreign key tester, you can, as you create, you can test if it's actually unique. Currently for SQL Server only, we're working on new data sources right now. So foreign keys. And last thing, create lookups. So this is the new module we're releasing today. Lookups allow you to document specific values in a column. So let's say you have a document status. So document status will have like 0, 1, and 2. No one knows what that means. So you can create a lookup for that, call it order status or invoice status, and then Dataedo will extract those unique values, and you can provide description for that, right? So what does 0, what does 1, and what does 2 mean? Right, so you just review which columns are potentially should be like a lookup, should have a lookup table. And tracking progress, you can use progress tracking feature that you can see over here. Then you can document your BI reports. Today we're shipping report catalog and with BI connector, Power BI connector. We're working on more connectors for Tableau and other BI tools we'll be working on in the future. You can also document them manually, so you can document your key reports, just create them manually in the catalog. Yeah, so the documentation of reports, what you do is you provide description for the each report, like one sentence what it represents, and then link to business glossary terms in the glossary if it's there already. If not, you have to go back to that after you create a business glossary that I'll describe in a second. So describing report what it represents and linking business glossary to business glossary terms. That's like a documentation for your reports. Then business glossary. So maybe these steps could be switched. You identify. First step is you identify the terms. You can use a status field you can create a custom field called status. We'll be creating a native field for that in the future. Yeah, on the next slide I'll show you how you can brainstorm that. Then you provide definitions and change status for review. That's the role of data steward to provide definitions. You also should link terms to data and reports. For each term, you should identify where you can find this information in your databases. Then owner should approve or reject the definition. And the tracking of progress is checking how many terms you have and how many approved there are. So a few ideas on brainstorming of the glossary. First, top-down approach. So first you identify your keywords in your domain. So like nouns, you start with nouns. So customer, patient, vendor, whatever noun is very important in your business, you start with that. Then you check also like subtypes. So if you have a customer, so what's lost customer, what's prospect customers, and so on. That's also a good way to start. And you check your key metrics. So like revenue, returning revenue, lead conversion, ARR, and so on, right? So you define that, provide identify those keywords. Then you can also ask people what's not clear for people, especially new people. What you're using some language in your organization, but if someone new joins, they have it's not obvious for them what it means in your business. And you also try to identify. When you're talking about reports, analytics, and so on, what questions developers and report users ask when they look at it. So, for instance, is this net or gross profit, right? If they ask that, probably it's not clear what it means, and it should be also linked in the report. So, anything that's not clear, maybe that's a good idea for the business term. Then there's a bottom-up approach. So you start with the reports and check what measures you have on the reports, what filters you use on the reports, and also what are the dimensions. So dimensions could be like a country or a business division or something like that. You also review key tables and columns, right? So you check if they are also fit into that category. And probably you should have at least, it might be a good idea to create a term for every lookup, and at least for some values. So invoice status is a lookup, right? And probably that should be defined. And as particular statuses like pending invoice, paid invoice, and so on also should be defined. What does it mean if the invoice is paid? Might seem obvious, but maybe there's some more to it in your organization, the way you define it in your reporting. Next step, data classification. Run classifications for the specific classifications. Over here we have like CCPA, FAIRPA, GDPR. Maybe you have your own custom one. You can define it in Dataedo, and you run our data classification module and review those suggestions it produces, save it in the repository, and you can see over here it's the way of tracking. So it's really hard to tell whether you have all the fields, but you can see at least how many fields you have already classified in the and what's the percentage in particular sources. The next step is data lineage and ETL. So you can import ETL if you have a connector. So we have connectors for SSIS, dbt. Today we're shipping Azure Data Factory. We'll be adding more connectors in the future. Or you can create packages manually, because Dataedo allows you to define data lineage manually. So you can create package manually in the repository, so you can then document how the data is loaded. So you should check tables. So if they're like data warehouse tables, for instance, you should check if they have lineage. Every data table in data warehouse probably is loaded there on a daily basis. Then it should have lineage. The same for views. So every view has a lineage by definition. And in 10.3 and 10.4, we added some automation. 10.3 had lineage from dependencies, and 10.4 has a column level lineage automated from SQL Server and Azure SQL. From SQL, we parse it, so that's how we produce it automatically. Then for stored procedures, you check stored procedure by stored procedure, and we have suggestions based on the text of the procedure, and you just review if you check the code if that's complete. In the future, we'll be automating that as well. You check every ETL package if it actually includes all the processing logic. You check reports and BI data sets if they have a source. So every report obviously has a source, and data sets in the BI also have a source. So you should map that too. And the last set you create are those lookups. I mentioned that in the data dictionary because you create them bottom up when you check the tables, when you document tables. In this step, you can review that. So check lookups and identify if they. In Dataedo, you can create a lookup. Lookup, it's like a separate entity, and it's linked to columns. It can be linked to multiple columns. So you have like an invoice status or currency, for instance. Currency is a good example. You probably have a ton of tables that use currency column. You should review if the currency lookup is linked to all the occurrences in your database. So this is where you do it. You load values. Dataedo loads those values from the database, and review from the unique values that were found. It creates a suggestion, so you review those suggestions lists, so you approve which values are valid, which are not. Databases have some dirty data, so you don't, not all the values are valid, so you reject that. Then you provide description for values. For currency, it's not maybe necessary because everyone knows what USD or GBP is, but maybe you can provide descriptions, right? Then data owner should approve that. And the tracking is the number. You check the number of lookups in the database. There's no way to tell how many there should be, but if there's just two, there's too little. We'll be checking some benchmarks in the future, so maybe we can provide you with how many you could expect in a good documentation. But yeah, you can check how many lookups were defined. Okay, so after that you roll it out and hopefully get value from the documentation. There's a lot of information. If you've done all those steps, you created a lot of information that was not obvious for everyone in your organization. So anyone, we added reporting, so everyone is using reporting in your organization, so they can learn about key reports. They can learn what they represent and link it to the definitions, how your organization defines specific terms and metrics in your.
And next step, so where do you go from here? So number one is make sure you download and upgrade to 10.4 today. Hopefully majority of you plan to do so, but if you have any issues with that, please let us know. Reach out to Alex. She'll get a support meeting. She'll get an upgrade meeting if you need help with it. But otherwise, number one is just download it. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out. So Alex's email is here, and then that's for customers. If you are a new customer to Dataedo or you're just exploring Dataedo, obviously you won't have access to Alex, but you can just reach out to support directly and they will make sure to help you out. Or metadata extraction. So this is a new program that we're starting to work with, which essentially we learned a lot of our customers or even prospects and new customers that are coming in, we don't support all of your data sources. And as you can imagine, in the world of data, we're likely never going to. However, we do have a team devoted to helping customers with one-off connectors that maybe we don't support, but you would like to document or have within Dataedo. So if you run across any of those, please reach out to Alex if you're a customer, and if you're a new customer or someone exploring Dataedo and you would like to see if we can help you get some of your metadata into Dataedo, reach out to Patrick at Dataedo.com. But either way, we want to make sure that we can help serve you guys to whatever level you need. And this is a great resource that we encourage you to take advantage of. And just to mention, it doesn't have any costs associated. And upgrade your plan. So I know a lot of the things that we've covered here, like reference data management, report catalog, really benefits in the web catalog as well for your viewers. So if you aren't on one of those plans, you want to take advantage of the live web catalog, you want to take advantage of a lot of the new features, feel free to reach out. We're happy to discuss a heavy discount for legacy plan subscribers. So as we've introduced new pricing into Dataedo and really had to meet the market where it's at, we still want to make sure that our current customers have a very clear route to upgrades and that it's not going to break your budget to do so. So feel free to reach out to Jonathan at Dataedo.com for any type of upgrading questions, or if you're interested in what that looks like for a discount or even a demo of what we offer in the current status of Dataedo. And I know we have a few questions now, so we'll continue to answer these and continue to ask them as we're answering them here. So Piotr, Mark also asked if there's any suggestion on how to use data profiling when they document the development instance, but want to profile only production.
Okay, what you could do when you connect, connection, you can import schema from dev, and then when you connect to, when you profile, you can change the connection to prod. So you can run that on prod, right? That would work.
Awesome.
Yeah, I hope that that's a solution for you.
Mark, if you run into any issues with that, let us know and we'll make sure to get a meeting set up and run through it.
Yeah, if you don't have specific columns, you can always uncheck it. But if they don't exist, it will just say it failed. But there shouldn't be an issue with that.
Okay, awesome. Piotr, we can go ahead to the last slide and share our contact information and just wrap things up for everybody. If you have any additional questions, as mentioned, for customers, Alex is going to be your best point of contact. She is an absolute rock star, and we'll make sure that you guys have what you need. And for people exploring the tool, many of you, I'm sure, have already met Patrick, but he's going to be your best resource for questions there. Anything above and beyond, you can always reach out. We have live chat on our website. We have support available for you guys. And then also, Piotr and I have our contact information here, so feel free to reach out to us directly. Our responses may not be as quick as everyone else that I've mentioned, which is why I mentioned them. But we are always here and happy to help out. So appreciate you all joining today, and hopefully Piotr was able to share with you a lot of tips and making sure that you're documenting efficiently and able to scale this out. And we plan to do a few more of these webinars in the next couple of months, so keep an eye out for that. And then if you do need anything in the meantime, let us know. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.